Special Olympics British Columbia Coach Diary with Dr. Laura Ferris. Coach Recovery.
Coach recovery. It's a very interesting topic and has kind of emerged over the last few years as something that a lot of researchers are starting to look at, is the coach again as a performer. And with all the stress that a coach gets placed under in pressure situations, it's really interesting to think, how do you recover? And what is your process for that recovery? So no matter what level you coach at, what's important is to really understand how you manage stress and how you create the best energy for you to be able to perform at your best. So what is recovery? It's related to the type and duration of stress that you have. It's an ongoing process and should be approached more as a habit rather than something that you just do intermittently. It looks at taking a break or changing the environment from what you're doing to be able to recoup and find energy from the sources that you need. And it's influenced by conditions such as sleep, social contact, and other variables. So it's quite a complex thing, but from a coach perspective, it's important to kind of identify, how do you recover? So when you think about a performance, when you go in and coach, and especially when you get into competition situations where you may have a few performances over the course of a long day or a couple of days, to a game situation where you may be over 3 or 4 or 5 days, depending on what the level of the competition is. How do you recover mentally? And how do you recover physically? So it's something to think about. When we think about the type of stress that you're under as a coach, there's general types of stress. Things like emotional stress, social stress, conflicts, pressures that can occur within situations, daily stress. All those things are going to deplete your resources and take away from the type of coach that you would like to be. There's sport-specific stresses, things like organizing things, disturbed breaks. Whenever you're doing something, someone's always kind of interrupting. Pressure, the confidence. How are you as a coach? That can be kind of a stress. Also the control or a commitment. Sometimes the same coaches do the same things and are involved in the same clubs year after year after year, and sometimes that commitment can kind of weigh and feel stressful at certain points. So what you want to look at is, how do I self-regulate? How do I manage myself so that I can have these periods of stress? Because the reality is that stress is not a bad thing, but it's rather how we manage our energies. Every time we go in, we deplete our energy resources to deal with that stress, which is positive, but we then need to recoup those energy resources to be able to go back into those situations. Sometimes we approach recovery more like a marathon, and what we do is we take a 2-week break each year from our stress and our lives. But what we want to think about it is more recovery, kind of like a series of sprints. When you perform, and then you recover, and you perform, and then you recover. So you're looking at recovery, looking at how you recover currently and your effectiveness of being able to do that. And in your diary, there's a little assessment form that you can take to kind of look at, how are my recovery strategies? Know your triggers and signs of stress. Some people get really tense. Some people maybe have their thoughts racing when they are in pressure situations. You should know kind of what your triggers are, and also know maybe ways to be able to manage them. And that comes down to practical strategies. How do you manage situations and after they happen? So the physical side of them, even things like eating, sleeping, hydrating, all those things will influence your energy to be able to deal with things under pressure. Mental, your thoughts, your feelings of situations. The social side, what support do you have within your coaching staff, within your life, that allow you to be able to get things off your chest, to be able to debrief, to be able to talk about things, to then be able to refocus and come back and do what you need to do. And then the emotional side. You have expectations too as a coach. You want your athletes to do really well. You want them to perform really well. Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. There's emotion attached to that. Being able to manage that, recognize it, and have ways to alleviate it. That can play a big role. Approach recovery like a habit. So trying to see recovery as something that you have a plan for. And that what we look at is being able to release the emotion that's caught up, recharge ourselves by debriefing, thinking about what's important, maybe having nutrition, and then being able to refresh, clear our mind, relaxation, music, whatever that is, and then thinking about new goals, rebuilding, coming into the situation, and then being able to think about the actual performance or re-entering it. So seeing it kind of like a cyclical process like that. So what is your recovery plan? It's a lot about the stuff we've talked about being able to recognize those tendencies and knowing what you need physically, mentally, socially, emotionally to be able to recover. So start to think about being at your best as a little bit of something that you can control by the amount of energy and how you manage that. And that stress is not bad. It's a natural part of coaching. But being able to manage your energy will allow you to feel better under those stressful conditions.